We have to choose how to basically get into provision. Visionary cortex lines of delta theta is position imagination lines. Courses, communication, setting, and configuration, setting, face recognitions of patterns into light metaphors. Now, light metaphors is a real-line course center lines of travel. Has direct line of panel and communication lines of service. Now, clocking system, the 24 system, is treated in how to communicate to all levels of sequence. Across communication lines. Get you in all levels how to get in a 24 line of platform. Sending lines to track centers, line to read lines, course centers, line to traffic, communicates setting. Now we start with the outer. That's the outer. And this is the inner. Okay. So, and this set positions of view in the center operation. Okay, it's 3 cycles and set lines. Sets communication lines as high direct signals and ground lines of surface track relations. Okay. So what we have to truly understand, if you look really close, you can actually see the line communication setting, how it comes on position location of here and position of here. 6 and 9. Okay. Set course, travels, line rotation service, and track communications. So everything is a process communication lines at grounds. Set course centers and direct signals of flux. Set positions of figure 8, motion line screen adaptation. Setting lines of high centers, north, east, west, and south, in high course centers, lines of travels, and windows of frames. Setting communications, back in sequence, back in panel, back in operation. So we have to truly understand how to coordinate through that. So we're going to go through the line signals of 24 clockings, and then work up the platforms, okay, and set position locations. So the team knows understanding the test, review, and its evaluation. Gets you to understand how to use that through travels, your existing, your systems, into your interpretation. It's really saying how to modify that. So if you're going to triangulation, that's a clock, right? But the geometric is inside. Okay, this is the geometric that you're creating, all right? So what you understand is the arrows of indications of what you want to create, right? What you want to create, okay? So it's very powerful once you understand, but the 12 clocking system is outside now. Okay, 3-point dots and 4 sequence. Okay, now, what we have to understand is the 24 system is now in center of operation. Sets lines, communication lines. Get the team lines, screen adaptation of service. Set course centers, line communication, 12 lines equals lines of nebula. Setting lines of north, east. Okay, coordinates. Okay, supposition of 0, 0, 1, line triangulation system. Triangulations of 2, 2, 2. Positional lines and relation system travel. 2 graph communication lines in Pluto. All right, direct lines in the link. 3 lines, of course, centers, line communications, height centers, travel communications, all right? All right, so the teams in sequence, teams of panel, teams in operation system, 12 lines of setting, 12 lines of attractions, outer rings, and line communication system and travel. All right, so you guys have fun with that sequence. Now, 24 platform is knowing exactly how to go in provision. Once we stand the inner rings, then we stand the outer rings and set position lines of travel. Okay. Change direct signals and ground lines of communication lines of surface. Okay, change it again. Remember, everything's changing in formations of 4 settings, guys. All right. Bring it back home in equations, back in sequence. Okay, so that's just basic understanding what you see through travel. Okay, so it's important to understand it. Same with the square. Let's go through square, and let's go through 3. Let's go through a symbol, and let's go through a letter. Okay, how to go through that settings, right? So you get 12 lines of sequence. Now you can have 12, 12, right? That's connecting the lines of Earth, and position lines equals the lines of position of space, right? So space equals lines of nebula. You're a nebula, right? That's nebula, 12 clocking system. Networks over 1, okay? Now, getting position and travel lines has a flux. Everything has to have a flux in 3 cycles, because that's the 3, that's the 6, and that's the 9, right? 24 is in the center operation. Okay, so that's true that you stand through a box now, but the 12 is outside, which is the outer ring, which is the outer ring of space. Okay, all right, so once you stand that position is also with 3, 12 here, and 12 here, and 12 here. Okay, 12, 12, 12. So we got 12 equals lines of grounds, and we got 12 equals lines and powers, and we got 12 lines into equals lines of its atmosphere. Now you can work with the atmospheres in its ozone. Setting position on all communication lines equals lines. Triangulation in box, question, add a question there because that's the position case to a system. So that comes into your quantum of unification to its existing, the system lines of time, the intelligence operation of its network. Question. Setting lines of communication high position travel. Right? So you travel to this lines and screen adaptations in 1, 2, and 3 in line rotation. There's the 3 traveling, right? So what you understand, this is the outer ring of 12. Okay, now, once you understand the Fibonacci, I'm showing you letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols, how this all works, all through travel. Everything's at 24. 24 is in center. Okay, all right. 12 is outside, which is basically you have to get in that position because we are in the inner spectrum, outer spectrum. Inner norm, outer norm, inner space, outer space, inner orbit, outer orbit, enter, exit. All right, so you got 12 lines, okay? What we're going to do through a formation setting into a core centers, lines of travel, and direct signals and modifications of files, directing ground lines of communication setting into dislocation or tesseract, all through Fibonacci. So the Fibonacci, you set a 12-line sequence, you set another Fibonacci here. 12-line sequence in 6, set another Fibonacci here. 12-line sequence out here, set another Fibonacci here. You're working everything from inside a spectrum, okay? So you understand your clock consists of a 24 system. Right, so there you go. Okay, very powerful stuff. And then we go through the letters. This is all through 24, guys. This is just 24 platforms now, all through this. This is so simple. Now the L has an indicator, 3 lines of course, centers of travel, 2 lines of tractions. Now I'm going to go into 144 platform. Here, 144 platform and 144 platform, 3 settings to 3 angles. Okay, but the center point system is going to be 24 clocking system. Okay, so in that position, this is the pi. Okay, from direct in positions of redirect. Okay, setting lines of flux in setting lines of flux in center operation in traction, and setting lines of center in communications of platform and position. Through 144 to 24 clocking system. 1, 2, 3, 4. Letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. Okay, guys? Very simple, all through 24. All right. So, using your imagination, coordinate system location, your planets at 12 settings of DNA track locations, all through calculation. All right. All right, so understanding, we'll go into the inner spectrum, outer spectrum. So everything has an in and everything has an out. Okay, so this is in and this is out. This is out and this is in. Okay, so the faster you go, then you're understanding how to go through pi. Okay, you're going here and you're going here in the same direction. 3 settings, right? So you change the formula. This is where you come into the equation in set position. So it's important you understand how to do that through letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. 24 is always in the center, but look how powerful that is. Look what I created through geometry, everything from inside. Look at that. Truth and false narrative. All right, so let's get into that. All right, so it gets a lot more difficult when you go in position locations. Let's see, digits over line, digits over frame, set lines of earth, set lines of earth, set lines of earth, and set lines of earth in 4 tractions. 4 lines of earth. Tubing 1 and 2. Tubing 3 and 4. Now you're in your highways. Okay, 45 angle, right? Up, 45 angle, down, right? Change direct signals in ground lines of set position to your pyramid. Process communication XD thousands and 2 platforms of communication. Ground levels 1 and ground levels 2 in crop circles as set position. Remember, I'm changing the formula, changing the equations, right? But it's always in line screen adaptation of 24. So that's communication system all through magnetic highways and forest lines of communication. Or anything of portals of communication. So you're basically telling a story how you're telling a story in set position. But the story is all of you, how you see yourself through your own coding in a story. Remember, you got to break these things down. But I wanted to show you how powerful it is for you guys to recognize these things all through track lines and letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. Look how powerful it is all through 24. Look what you can do through levels of what you are in attractions and how you use it through frequencies of your 24 clocking system. All is 24 right there. Now, when you come in together, you bring it all together in a box frame. They all come together in a box. So basically, you're pushing all lines of communication inside track centers and direct signals through Xbox. So that fluxes system and all lines of all communication setting configuration of face recognition. All together. So that's what you have to truly stay, because it's the windows, it's the frames, it's the equilibrium, it's the balance, it's the atom lines, the screen lines, adaptation of surface and track communication system, all through setting. We got pausing sequence now. Okay, so now you have to understand how to use a 24 sequence in all lines of communications. We start with 24. Now this is where you have to really understand. This is the inner spectrum. Okay, this is the habitation. Okay, which is line position of your arc. ARC equals lines. So that's communication lines, high center line position locations to H lines of 1, 2, and 3, and 4 in track communications. Now, getting in that communication system, you truly understand the question, which is all of your quantum self equals lines in set position of 3. So that's communication lines of 4. Okay, 3, 4 line settings, right? So that's lines of 2 and lines of 3 over traction. 3 equals lines of 2 plus lines of high position is 5 in set position. Setting core lines of 4 in line rotations and 4 lines of solar flex and communication lines of travel. Directing lines of grounds sets communication system through waving screens. Directing core centers, flux over 1, flux over 2, flux over setting in track communications. Directing lines of panel, operation system, and portals of communication lines of stargates. Directing flux over screen adaptations all levels of communication setting to your computer framing track locations. Ground lines of 1 and position of 2. 2 tubing lines of screen adaptations and settings. Process line 1, process lines of 2, clocking lines of 3, clocking lines of 4, and track location. All right, setting communication high center location system, all 3 calculations setting to your planets. So what you guys have to understand is understand how to see yourself as a story. Okay, what is story? System, travels, operation, reminding you of you. Story. That's what it is. So you're telling a story. And when you're telling a story in 4 directions. Different formula, different equation. Or you can do a story in settings of 12 into 12 into 12 into 12 and 24 in center. Right? So it's the same story. Nothing's changing. The only thing that changes is how you change things through intent. And 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 it's how you change things through intent. Every time I change the intent, I'm changing the frame of time, clocking, and mechanism location system. Off the platform, off the communication system and travel. So what you have to identify is how to do that through the story that you are. You're telling a story at beginning, middle, and end. But see, it doesn't have a beginning. It doesn't have a middle, and it doesn't have an end. You do it through your own coding system, how you see B, okay? E, G, I, N. Balance, existing, grounds, intelligence, network. Begin. And then the high lines, high center interference is the intelligence communication setting to all of this into new line core centers, a ground communication setting, or gravitation. But you truly understand what begin means in setting. Then you understand what story means in setting, see through coding. Then you understand what it is in track communications. Right? This is what you can do in all communication setting through your codings. Platforms here, change communication lines of direct signals and ground lines of surface. Setting communication lines of structures and set direct signals and ground communication setting to travel. So I'm just showing you guys, you're constantly going through a 4-line sequence, but look how powerful it is through letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols through a 24 clocking system. This is only a 24 clocking system. Now, when you get out of 24, and you go into 48, okay, so this is the 12, this is the 24. Okay, so what you have to truly stand, let's get a 4 clocking system. 24 into line positions of 4, sets communication lines of 2, plus 2 is 4 in sequence, right? Sets course, centers, line, position, location, system. Now, you can go through 48, or you can add plus 2 lines of settings in position of 44 clocking system. So it can be anything you want. And then basically, if you want to cancel out the 44, you cancel it out, right? And let's say there's a position of 64. Okay, so remember, there's a clocking system. I'm just going beyond random here. 64, so you have to cancel 44 to bring in 64. Cancel 64 to bring out 144. Okay, so what you're doing is directing and redirecting back and forth. All right, so getting into that position, 24 clocking system, okay, sets lines of 24 angles. It's really powerful stuff, guys. 24, right? So you get a clocking system and you've got an arrow indications and 3 settings. Okay, so set position locations in center of the sun and set position locations levels into its moon. There's the sun, there's the moon. And you are traveling through the indicator of 3. So what you're traveling through is a box frame, okay? And your triangulation is inside position. So you're going around the clocking system in box frame of triangulation or triangulation box. So as you're traveling through that, you're going through lines of 3 in position of 6 and 9 and 12. The 24 is always in the center operation of your system and travel. Okay? Now, once you get into 24, 24, 24, okay, ground lines of 2, 2, that's 3 lines of setting. That puts all the line positions of Pluto, and track locations coming to you in division. Okay? So it gets complicated more and more once you understand the 24. So we showed you so many ways to look at 24 and track communications, all through tractions. Setting lines of communication system. So let's get this in basic grounds. Okay, it's set. Circle line, okay, your geometry, your teleportation is inside. Okay, your clocking system of 12 is outside. Okay, your mechanism lines of force is inside of 24. So you can go up to 24 into 1/3. You go into line position of 0, 1. It's getting more complicated now, right, through clocking. And set position of 3,000 measure. That's a clocking system. Very complicated, but try to stand. It's a 24 clocking. Now, basically, I understand. Now, it gets very confusing in that position. So if you want to go to higher lines of frequencies, they have to understand how to use that through the inner to the outer orbits. So if I want to bring in the 12, okay, I bring in the 12, it cancels out the 24. The 24 goes here in set position. Sets all communication lines as standby. So, and that position lines into direct, in position lines of redirect and setting. Understand communication lines of grounds is a set position location to a system. So this is where you can basically understand how to use that in higher information lines of ground communications. Setting lines of flux over lines of screen. So let's say you don't want 24 clocking system, you want to bring in the 13. So you got to cancel out the 24 and bring in the 13. Okay? So if you bring in the 13, now you're bringing in position global, now it's 1 p.m. Okay, because it's a 13 hour. 13 hours, 1 p.m. So there's a lot of things you can do through clocking, guys. I'm just showing you different lines of information system. And when you turn it upside down, it's a different formula of clocking. Okay? I'm changing the frames now. But the one thing that doesn't change is the triangulation. Okay? But it's very powerful when you understand its communication to a system, all through travel. Okay? So it's all about understanding flux, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, through frequencies, right? But once you stand direct and redirect, it's one setting, one symbol, one traction, one division, one locations, existing all at once, all timelines all at once. Okay? But it's very powerful when you come into that setting. Okay? And that is just all levels in position. From a 24, a 12, and a 13 clocking system. Okay, that's what you do. So every time you're doing that, you're doing this. You're changing this, circulation and rotation. Okay, you're changing this, circulation rotations. Okay, so you're going faster in the same directions. If direct and redirect is one symbolism, one traction, one location, one speed anomaly going in the same traction division location. Same directions. Now when it goes in the same directions, it starts to create its portal of travel. Now, you have a 24 sequence here, right? But you have to have a 12 if you're working with 24. If you're working with 48 position, 72 has to be here in standby. If you're working with 144, 72 has to be in standby. Okay, so you have to understand how this works. So you cancel delete. So you're directing and then you're redirecting back in set position. Setting lines of communication, high center interference, high position locations, summoning line course centers into geometric lines of patterns, into line course centers, into stargates. Now, when you come to stargates, security lines of panels, flux over screen, indirect signals, and pixelation graphs. Core lines of travels, indirect signals, and modification ground lines of surface in set position. All right? Bring in home in sequence, bring in home back contraction. Yeah? So you have to understand direct and redirect. Direct and redirect is the symbolism lines of tractions that puts all communication setting of yin and yang of communications. So yin and yang flux over 3 and set track locations into 3, 6, and 9. 12 is here, 24 in the center. And set position. Mechanism over power, 3 over 6. All right, turn on the light, flux over line. Right? Course center line position, light bulb comes in and tracks it. There's the intelligence. Boom. Right? Always intelligence in setting. But you have to understand this through flux screen, through your core system of travel. Right? So I'm showing you different lines of communications, how to go through that in setting. All right, so once you understand that, then you get into a 48 clocking system. So you got a 24 clocking, 12 cycles. All right, 12 cycles, 6 cycles. There could be 3 cycles. It could be only, that's a clocking system. Who says you have to have, or you can go back into 1, 2, and 3. But at least you understand how to do through coding now. Because it's a lot different when you see it in your own system and travel through your imaginations that you are. And set calculations, right? That's a 12 clocking system. But you understand the 12 is not here. It's out. 12 equals nebula. Nebula equals lines, NEWS, inline position location setting, networks, existing, line position in its width and its system, 4-track provision. All right, so the line position of 48 clocking system, 48 here, you guessed it, 24 here, out. 12 is here, okay? So now you're panning out. You're panning out now through the inner and outer ring, and you're going faster now. Okay, so 48 lines, plus lines 1 angle, plus lines of 0 angle, plus lines of set lines. Set communication lines over 1 over 3rd. This is all lines of communication setting to travel. Now, it gets more complicated to understand the flux over screen adaptation. Process lines of 1, set position of 4 track lines, setting position location of system all through travel. Now, directing lines of 8 flux over line is infinity in rotations lines of 3 track communications. Setting communication lines of grounds is set position to its operations surface and traction. Okay, different clocking systems. Okay, guys? So it's important to understand a 48 clocking system is how you go through your own creations. Through the creating that you are, through creating. Creating. Come into lines in position of creator, into position lines of high center locations in creation to creating. All right. Symbolize lines of 1, 2, and 3, and 4 lines. Set lines of course centers of triangulation. Change communication lines, location grids, and travel communications, operation surface interactions, all through a mapping sequence panel through operation set calculations. All right. 3 windows, core lines of 1, 2, platforms of 3, ground lines of 1, 2, ground lines of 3 and 4, ground lines of 6 over 8 traction. Directing lines, symbolism line course centers, line direct signals, and ground lines of surface. 3 platforms, in line position of 0, process lines of 1, process lines of 2, process lines of 6. Setting course centers, lines of travels, in portals of stargates, line communication setting and travel. Setting communication heights interference, setting direct signals and ground lines of calculation system, all through communication setting to its vessel of communication. All right, guys. So I'm showing you so many ways how to get into your positions, how you direct and redirect your systems into your letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols in a 24 clocking system. Now with 48, try to understand that. So 48 lines. Okay, there's a 48 here, right? So, and then you have a set position of 72. And then you get a set positions of 144. Now 144 is the platform of Asgard in frequency. This is Asgard at 144. Okay, 72 is its computer. Okay, there's a computer. 48 is its box window frame. Okay, so now you understand how to work with the 48 clocking, 72 computer frame, and 144 crystal grid. Triangulation of the flux molecules at 3 cycles in setting. Balance of communication of clockings, set lines, and position lines of window. Sending track lines and direct signals opposite direct signal location system to window frame and track location. Changing division lines, highest interference, setting lines of triangulation this way in line position location, open window frame, and communication settings. So it's amazing when you change platforms, it's incredible how you come in this and track locations. Your pyramid and 3 planets of realms. So you have to get into the story of you. And when you get into the story of you, it's much easier to understand that how to go through your 12s and how to go through your 24 clocking systems, right? But always remember, in position, the reminder in your system, the reminder is always of where you are, how to go that through the geometries in setting, right? Your GOD is inside, okay? This is the internal cycle inside, this is the outside. But the clocking system is here, lines of travel. Set lines of direct and set lines of redirect. 12 here, and 12 here. So God equals lines of settings of 24 here, 24 here, 24 here, and 24 here. North, east, west, and south, and travel. Merkaba. Crossing line, okay? Coming into all levels in track locations during X2000. X2000 is at a 144 platform in tractions. Then you get into modifications in energy, processing, directions, mastering, that communication setting all through travel. Okay, travel communication, highest interference, platforms 1, platforms 2, platforms 3, and platforms 4. Okay, bringing in position to its location setting, to its wormhole, its black hole, communication setting, all through travel and mechanism, all through clocking. So you got the basic rounds of 12, you got the 24 lines of sequence, and you got your provision lines of cycles and clocking communication system all through travel. So once you get into that, then you get into higher levels of sequence, because you understand the frames, the computer frames, okay, and really understand how to use it through the circuits of you. You have a box frame, circulation frame, 3 lines of quarters, indirect standards and 4 lines of flux, right? So set position of 3, set position of 6, and 9, and position of 12, and 24 lines of calculations. 2 panels, which is your circuits. 3 lines of signals, which is your perimeter. So we got 2 lines of grounds and 4 lines of signals in 4 settings. Change communication, there's your pyramid in track location. All right, so wave lines of cycles, height generates the screen lines of waves. So we've got 1 lines of wave. This is the alpha tone. Okay, this is the delta tone in set position. This is the theta tone in set position. Okay, changing course of direct signals into plasma lines and grid lines, communication setting of force recognitions. Setting communication high center line condition setting to your location grids in set position. Setting lines of grounds, setting lines of course, setting lines of rainbow graph screen adaptation setting of force. Setting communication high course centers in flux over line, directing signal line communication setting, and 4 lines of symbolism in crop circles and direct signals, and ground lines of surface and traction. Hoo-ah. All right, bring it back home in equations. There we are at set position. Okay, guys? So it's the story you get into. You guys are your own inventions, Understand your own significant systems and know exactly how to use that for the correlation lines of setting. Set position lines of x, 1, 1. Okay, so that's 10 equals lines of 2. Okay, we already know that equals lines of triangulation. Now, how do I get x to 2? X, 2 panels into a triangulation. 1, 2. There it is. So this is this. This is this. This equals this. Right? So these are the 2 panels. Setting track lines of 1, 2, and 3 and 4. Change the platform. Sets communication system all through track location to your pyramid. Sets communication lines of ground lines of surface and track location. Okay. Sets communication lines of ground lines of course centers to next 8,000 traveling. Boom. 2 panels operation setting, 3 lines of signals, 2 panels over line cross location of SkyNet, SkyGrid location system. Again, to your pyramid and track location, your line settings. So here's a pyramid, there's a pyramid through direction. Laser platforms and 4 settings and travel. Cross line communication settings of 1, 2, and 3 lines of communications. Directing course centers, laser tractions and 3 lines of signals, a 4 line communication setting and clocking communications. Platform E, F, lines of G and set position of window frame. Setting core lines of channels and direct signals to ground lines of surface and perimeter. Setting communication height course centers and flux over screen. There's the flux of communications. Ooh-ah. Directing right and directing left and set position. Coming back home in sequence, back in traction. All right. So we have to create the story frame through a 24 sequence of letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols now. If you see a box frame, 24 sequence, 12 cycles. Right? So remember, guys, it's very important. If you want to use a 12 clocking system, you got to cancel at 24. So 12 comes in. Because if you don't, the 24 sets line and it creates its own anomaly back in space, back and governs its own system, which you have no lower correlation setting to inner spectrum and outer spectrum at 3 set line communication lines of cycles. Correlates the setting and tracks in all division location to its system, creates its own anomaly, and starts running its system all through travel. Back forcing in position locations back into its matrix. Hooah! So that's why you have to cancel, delete, and erase. Okay? You have to cancel that. That sets lines of defaults, that puts lines enabled, location setting that embeds your system location of implantation. So implantation of 24 sequence, lines of 48 measure into 72 tractions. Remember, it's just a story frame. Setting line position location is how you want to see your higher self, your avatar, and your sim. There's panel of communications right there in traction. All right, so you got higher self. Remember, we got in that set lines, your higher position, your avatar, and you got your sim in 3 tractions. Setting communication setting into your mind. There's the pyramid. Setting line communications, right? So they look separated, but they're not because they're always tethered. Each letter, each number is always tethered in set position. Even the indication settings in all track locations, the 2s, the 4s, the letters, the numbers, the shapes, the panels, the operation system, all of the lines are tethered. You're tethered, everything's tethered to you in track location system, and 4 lines of signals or 8 lines of traction and division. Everything is tethered, everything's connected. All through perimeter and set position your pyramid in traction. There's your pyramid. All right, 7 lines of sequence, L lines of tracks, 4 lines of signals, 1 line symbolism, and 3 line communications. Full spectrum into a primer circuit in 3 lines of communications. Direct lines of panels, L lines of settings, process lines of 1, process lines of 2, laser track locations, SkyNet lines of 4, and set position lines of travel. Sets communication system all through track communication lines of surface and set position. It's complicated, isn't it? So it looks separated, but it's not. It's always together. Now you understand the attachment where you don't come into emotion, right, through settings. So we got a panel of communication lines of grounds and center core system XD1000. Okay, platform and setting lines of travels in 4 settings in 3 set locations. Okay. Okay, center operation of service, location of portals. Okay, so we have direct going this way, and then we have redirect going that way in set position. See the sync line, course centers, lines of travels, and mechanism. Okay, Then we come into dome screens. Set lines of communication, lines of center, and set position location of center, and set position location of center, electrical line communications and magnetic force. Sending direct signals, back in setting, back in travel, back home, into position location setting. So it's very powerful how to go through that through 24, 48, 72. Now, in position lines of 72 clocking system is all through computer digits. Now, the digits gets complicated because the eagle line changes everything through the platform. So you start with this, right? But 72 computer is this. It's all divots. It's complicated because now you're going to higher force of frequencies. It's like reading things on a scanner or a prompter. Okay, if we have a divot like this, that means there's something there blocking the system, or there's a planet in sequence and set in position. All right, so setting sequence lines of 24, setting communication lines of 48 tractions into 72 computer, all through digit and divots. Set lines in habitation zone, habitation zone, inhabitation zone, inhabitation zone, two lines of tractions. Setting direct lines, modification, ground lines, of course, centers, lines of travel. Symbolism lines of 1, cross lines, say course centers, divots over screen, direct lines, modification, grounds, transits over line, transformation screen, adaptation of surface and track location, your pyramid. Setting lines of communication high centers into Schumann resonance, changing course lines of time and direct signals and modification grounds. Setting communication high center location, X2000 here, X2000 here, X2000 here, and 3 platforms. Setting communication system here, setting communication system here, setting communications here, and travel. 3 lines of communication of primary circuits, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay. Symbolism on the lines of grounds, line communication setting, all through setting. Bring it home back in equations, back in tractions. Hooah. All right, see how it gets complicated when you go higher lines of clockings, guys? All right, so this is how it's set. Let's show it again. Okay, so graphs, communication settings, process your highways in 3 tractions, all right? Then you get into window frame, central frame, main frame, okay? So 24, 48, 72 is the computer. Okay, that's it. So I get 24, 48, 72 in a triangulation. And 144 is your platform, is your crystal grid, traveling through the system to all levels of Asgard. That's how it's set out through triangulation. All right, guys. How's everybody doing in settings now? Getting a true understanding how to work through the clocking system, all through settings and position locations. You change your thought pattern, it changes everything through metric meters, and it runs its own system that governs its own system, because now you're not in control anymore. And your thoughts are action emotions. So each thought, each action, each emotion is going in that directions. Right? You're supposed to be going this way. Right? Not this way. So you have to stand direct and redirect in one. And once you understand that, then you understand the flux of setting. Circulation of 1, 2, 3, 6, line 12, 24, 48, 72, 144. There you go. Balance of communications of 6 and 9. 6 and 9. Okay? 6 and 9. And position locations of 6 and 9, people. 6 and 9 in the direction, the same direction, right? Same direction going this way, going around the same directions in that position, the same direction, same direction. So direct and redirect is 1. Through your clockings, through your balance, through your operations, and set position line circulation rotation. All right. Bring it back home. There it is, the equation. Okay, 6 and 9. So 6 and 9 comes together. All right. Set lines of 6. Set position locations, you start with that through 9. Okay, which is affirmations of intelligence. Say hello. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. There's the intelligence. I sequence lines of panels, setting communication system here, and position lines of here, and flux over 3. Intelligence. Set course centers, energized. There you go. Now it's easy getting lines of communication. Go through this. Okay, you go through this. 3 lines of flux. And set position. I'm going all different angles and tractions, all through setting. Oh yeah. So that's what it is. That's what you see through a box. That's what you see through symbolism. That's what you see through clocking and set track locations and set position. 24 clockings all through this. So getting in that position, this is how it's set up now. Okay, so basic understanding how this all works now, guys. Right through your windows and how to use it through your central frames and main frames, correlations in your panel frames, and your electrical frames, and your graphing frames, and your schematic frames, and your primer frames. It's all lines of communication setting, right? So we have a box, 4 highways and travel. Okay? Everything's inside. This is outside. This is outside. This is out space now. Now I'm going outer space. Now I'm going outer space. Going outer space. You understand? Everything I put is out space now, okay? This is inner of your geometric setting. This is outer, okay? So this is 12 lines of outer space. 12 equals lines of setting. This is ozone into the stratosphere. 12 lines of setting locations in the biosphere. 12 lines of set locations to alts in the brainiosphere. Set 12 lines of sig locations setting in this location to ozone. Setting track lines, atmosphere, brainiosphere, biosphere. Right? But everything is the inner spectrum of view of travel. So you have to send the portals of communications first. And how to go through its stargates in set position of set lines of 3, 6, 9, and 12 through a 24 clocking system of travel. Getting lines of ground, lines of communication surface, and travel. Clocking system and stargates. Stargates 1. There's Stargate 1, Stargate 2, and 3 lines of cycles, Stargate 3, and 4 lines of cycles of part of accelerator, Stargate 5, overline sequence and 3 lines of track communications, direct lines of symbolism, Stargate 12, and set position lines of travels and 4 lines of signals. There's the Stargates. All right, now once you have the Stargate, let's go back in sequence, back in panel, back in operation system. All right, let's change the course centers of time, change the course center line communication system. Now this is where we come into star measure, star links, star panels, star correlations, star communications, star mapping. So you're mapping your sequence of 1 in position of 2 over 3 in position lines of 4 over 5 in sequence, your 5th element. Understanding that is your networks, your grounds, your powers, your atmospheres, your modems, your Wi-Fi, your satellites, and your towers. Booyah! Bring it back home in sequence. That's what is in line communication system all through travel. All right, let's change it again. I change the centers. Does it change the operation? It stays in center operation settings, right? But see, try to understand portals and stargates and how that all works in set position. All through traction, right? All right, so you have perimeters and 3 cycles of highways and travel. And then we cross the line. It's set position location and setting. Okay, and then we come into platforms of communication system in a 3-track line provision. Then we go into a 6 lines, and then we go into a 7-line communications. Look at that, how powerful that is. So it gets more complicated if you don't understand what you're doing through travel. Sets communication line high centers, going down lines of sequence in platforms communication setting in habitation and in habitations of inner spectrum, inner norm, and outer space. Setting communication on high ground lines of surface and track locations. Look at this. It's lines of communication system all through tractions in all direct lines, calculation setting of its flux capacitor. Booyah. Or line communication setting to its spaceship. Booyah. Or its space recognition system of center operation. Booyah. Right, here it is. There's the intelligence. It's bringing the eyes. Looking down at you guys in set position. Face recognition. Boom. It's amazing. So it's a good thing I took perspective, because I can change the angles in all lines of communication lines of travel. But you have to understand how to use it through a 24, 48, 72, and 144 clocking system. Okay, and all different angles and 4 lines of communications. Okay, it's very powerful, guys. I want you to really understand how to clock your system. All right. Now let's go through signal lines and settings. Let's go through course centers, lines of travels into a star. And once you understand the star, then you understand the star gate. Let's just go through settings this location just in 4. So we got a 24 line signals in a 12 line sequence. Now I can do whatever I want because I know what I'm doing, right? So 12 lines, this is in, see? This is not outer space, this is inner space. So I'm changing space of inner space to outer space. 12 is outer space. Space itself is inner space. So I'm changing the scope. So it's understanding how to do it through its kaleidoscope of the sun and the moon of direction. Sending communications here and settings of 1, 2, 3 in set position. Setting communication lines of 1, 2, 3 and ground lines of communication of sonar. Setting communication lines of 12 lines of high position location echo chambers. Into locations of modems, Wi-Fi, satellites, and towers of communication. Hoo-ah. So it's important you understand these things and really understand how to formulate that through the story that you are and directions. You use the inner core, use the inner child. That gets you into communication, your higher self. That gets you into all levels, modify the system of space, and through time of measure. It's a story, all through a triangulation. In set position locations to your walking sequence. Okay, setting the lines of sequence here, here. Okay, so what you understand, 24, okay, 24 clockings and steps all at once. Start with that. Start with the 24 at the center of everything. Okay, until you get into the 48. Okay, because the 48 basically is on standby. It's on standby. Okay, so you want to clock faster, you cancel 24 and you bring in positions of 48 setting. The platform's all communication system of faster lines of tractions, putting lines of stargates, measures, and communication system all through force recognition. Your Merkaba. Your Merkaba here, and travel. Okay? I know it's complicated, right? But it's a lot of fun when you really understand how to travel through set lines of communication system all through calculations. There's one symbolism, there's one tractions over lines of flux. 3 lines of course centers, line position location, 4 lines of flux. Boom. Now if I change it in direct signals, look at this in track locations. 3 pyramids in setting. So I'm just trying to get you guys to understand how this all works in traction. All right, so this is what you can do once you understand how to go through lines of communication setting, right? So once you get into the story levels of you understand how to go through its travel and make its location of force of recognition. Well, look how powerful it is, guys. When you really understand your formulas of equations, okay, formulas of E, A, C, lines of D, lines of A, or lines of B, lines of C, or D, lines of C. What you have to identify is how to do it through your own coding. You got your primers, okay, you got your past, you got your present, and you got your future. See what I'm doing? But I'm all connecting each one of them. See, if one's off position, it falls off signal in ground lines and portals and wormholes. And it creates the wormholes and it fluxes system through E factors over screen. Directs the signals and channels the operation system to your pyramids and track locations. Setting off divisions to its windows, frames, and communication setting to the opposite directions. Setting on black holes and line positions all over the wormholes of dark matter and traction. If dark matter comes in lines of sequence, it takes over your thoughts, your actions, and your emotions. Hoo-ah. So don't do that through portal communication system all through travel. All right, simple. Understand your vast, your volume, and your velocities. Now each one has a course in. Let's go into box frame. Okay, set position of 12 equals lines of vast. 12 equals vast. Vast equals volume is center. Now, understanding equation lines and 8 lines of infinity and rotation, surface, and tractions. Direct lines and vast and volume and acceleration system at 4 lines of sequence. Setting communication lines of grounds and Merkaba and track locations. Hoo-ah, inside. Boom. Set a course system of directs and redirect out. Direct and redirect. Set lines of communication setting in position location of direct and direct, redirect, and out in set position. Setting course centers, lines of position location in system all through tractions in location grid. Boom. location grid going this way, and location grid going this way in flux over screen. Directing signals and modification ground, symbolism, outline, screen adaptation of surface, assess communication system of center calculation of part acceleration. Setting lines of travels, center core system into high core centers line communication. Directing lines, core centers lines of communication setting all through track location to your umbrella, to your ether, and your ferments interaction. Boom. That my equation. Back home in sequence and set position. All right, so I'm showing you so many ways to get in your own story frames and set position of center, platforms over lines, 3-track location system, and off the system. Frame calculation lines, X2001, docking lines of 3, lines of 4 line communication setting, docking here, docking here, docking here, docking here. Okay, so having fun with the fundamentals of U is the unifications of U through your networks and all lines of signals and all through modification system, all through setting and travel. Okay, so it's a lot more fun when you just basically understand how to go through all lines of communications, how to direct and redirect signals, all right, because you guys are now coming into higher line communications of Minitron, all through flux. You know, you look at locations, see the intelligence, right? There it is, there's the intelligence, there's the flux. But I have to truly understand how this all works, right? Now you guys are modified through 12 clocking system. Okay, and know exactly how to do that in line screen. Process communication lines of grounds, center communication service, setting communication system. Now, once you understand high position, I like to work with the box because it's much easier to read and signal. So you have, once you get a 12-line signal here, you can put 12 signals here, direct and redirect in setting and process communications. Then you have a 12, 12, 12, right? 12, 12, 12. 12, 12, 12, and 12, 12, 12, north, east, west, and south. That's all clocking. Now the clocking system is in one center of 2 lines of set lines of 3-track locations, which is your CERN. This is your CERN right here. Boom. Setting core lines of 12, 12 line inside, 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 inside position, inside, 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 inside position of inside track locations. All right, so you're directing inside position of 2080 in position. All right, track location lines and ground lines of surface and track locations. 4 lines of signals, platforms of 1 and travel. Saturn. Setting core lines of high set location system all through track locations. Jupiter. Setting communications high location setting 2 over track location setting. Pluto. Setting communication lines back in sequence, back in panel, back in operation setting. Process communications. Modems, Wi-Fi, satellites. Now coming in that system, you come in this clocking system of a webbing system. Out through correlation. Very powerful, isn't it? But look at this on a 45 angle. Hoo-ah. Okay? So that's a 12 clocking system. Now we understand what nebula is through the outer rings. All right, so the outer rings is the inner rim. Okay, so this is the outer rim. Okay, outer rim equals nebula, clocking system. Okay, that's the outer rim, right? This is the outer rim. Okay, this is the inner core. Okay, this is the pie of mass in set position locations. But start to see it like this, not like that. So to understand that is through this and this. Okay, so understanding the platforms of this in torical fields in set position. So once you understand that, then you understand the mechanism settings when you come to your XT1000s and 144 platform of communications. Now, directing lines of flux is a center core system of U, right? Center operation. Directing core centers lines of earth line rotation surface and track location setting. Process lines of 3 tractions, open signals all through modification ground lines of surface and traction. Coming into platforms, 144 platforms in XT1000s and 4 lines of set position. Okay? Complicated, isn't it? But it's a lot of fun. So I'm showing you guys how you go through this. okay? It's important you understand how to go through your stargates, all through setting, okay? Because there's so many ways of looking at this all through travel, okay? Direct and redirect, all through track locations, okay? Because it's a lot more fun if you just basically use it through the story. So it's creating lines of north, creating lines of east, west, and creating lines of south, 4 settings, right? So you got a 12 clocking system, you got a 24 lines platform, you're waiting the lines of 48 track centers, 48 line position locations, 72 is on standby, 144 is in platform, setting sequence lines of 2080, sets communication lines of 2090, sets communication lines of 2050, and set position locations in setting of 2030, and track locations, all through travel. But to understand that, you have to have a balance of communication lines of grounds. Flux number 1, this is where it comes into part accelerator. Center core system, outer system. Okay, so that's the spectrum in the 4 settings in your 12 clocking systems. 4 angles, 4 direct arrows in position. Now, get in that position. Once you do this, you can see the part accelerator going faster and faster, right? As it's going faster, it's creating the 24, 48, 72, 144 platform to travel. You're traveling here in that position, and you stop here, and you travel here in set position to its locations. Okay, so from here to here to here, that's where you are in location. So I'm trying to get you guys to understand these things, but you got to see it on a 4 angle. You can't just see it on one position, one surface. Okay? See, always see it on a 4 angle lines of communications. Right? And then once you get in that position locations and settings, you go through this sequence. Right? You travel. Okay, you're traveling through the inner core, which is the outer core in set position. So when you find that frequencies and when you change that intent, you go through that platform. There's the torical field. Now the torical field has lines of grounds, powers and atmospheres and highways and travel. Has a direct line link going down, cross line communication setting that tethers its communication system all through webbing. Sending cross line signals in your networks, highways, and modems and track location to a system all through travel. Okay, once you get into that, you come into this in set position. Hoo-ah! Okay, your XT1000, guys, right? So the faster you go, then you come in your XT1000, which is now a platform of set position called settings. Comes into all position locations, you guessed it, track communication settings, which is all levels of ASCII. Okay, now anything above 144, it's reconnecting. Anything above 144, okay, your clocking is going faster, but it's directing and redirecting, okay, in all timelines at once. Understand your clock is a 24, 48, 72, and 144 crystal grid. The faster you go through part accelerated, the more you understand your parallels, your paradigms, and your polar shifts, and know exactly how to come into that through structure and design. All through your flux, all through your webbings, all through your networks, modems, Wi-Fi's, and satellites of communication settings of your towers and track locations. Hoo-ah! Once you get into that, then you understand the portals and wormholes. Hoo-ah! Okay? Once you understand that, then you understand the grounds of communication lines of the Earth. Hoo-ah! So once you get in positions of, it comes back home in sequence, back in panel. Oh yeah. Look at this. Look at this. Look how powerful that is. Whoa. All through webbing, all through your networks, all through travel. Okay? See, it's getting more complicated now through structure, isn't it? Because you're reaching higher levels of the mind now, and the schematics are becoming more clear to you. This is where you come into your own coding systems now, through E factors or E track location system, all through travel. So that's all it is, guys. Truly understand how to work with that, get you in a better understanding how that position location your systems. So setting lines of center, this is what it is right now. This is where we are. That's where we are right now, right? 2000 setting, right? There's the I. Electrical system and settings. Equal lines, setting position, traction. All right, and that position of the split lines are not only ground lines of surface. Process communication here, process communication here, process communication here, process communication here. Over sequence, over setting, ground lines of set lines, I of the setting. Oh yeah. All right. So, sending track lines to 2080, that's where we are in setting, copy and paste. Okay, this is 2025, right here. So you get closer here to 3 travel. Sending communication high center locations into all of the pi, which is set position of your quad himself, is here. So what you're doing is you're bringing here and here together. Now when you bring together, you come together into 3 settings. The process communication lines comes into its yin and yang, a process communication system. That communication lines is security lines of this way, security lines of this way, security lines of this way, and position lines of this way in travel communications. Opens all signals and ground lines of surface interaction. Eyes, the windows, the soul. Now when it comes into the eyes and windows, the soul, then we come to theta communication setting and travel, your imaginations. Once we get into that, then we get into security line defense and communication settings of 3/4. Once we get into that, and then we get into all communication system, all through travels, understand a 24-line sequence in your webbing system. Ooh-ah. All through setting, all through operation. Okay? But there it is. Eyes, the windows, the soul. Okay? Mm-hmm. How's everybody doing so far? Woo! Blow your minds, eh? Constantly doing that in travel. But now you understand why everything has a flux now. Everything has to have a flux. Everything has to have a flux. Even one has a flux. One has a flux. Where's the flux? Where's the flux? Does anybody know where the flux is in settings? Can anybody identify the flux? Through this, here, and here. Okay? Same lines of grounds, setting lines of space, face recognition. Booyah! Set lines of grounds, set lines of powers, set lines of atmospheres. Okay, triangulation here, and triangulation here. Intelligence. Ooh-ah. Flux over here, face recognition. Intelligence. So every time I'm doing something, I'm changing it into its face recognition, guys. By changing it in that lines of communication system, look at that, all through time measure. Intelligence. Okay? Platforms, setting lines of travels, 4 lines of sequence, and cerebral cortex of 3. Setting ground lines, core centers, lines of ground lines, high center interference of flux over line, panels, communication, in circuits and travel. Sets communication, high position location system in 1 position of 2, set position lines of 3, set position lines of 3/4 and track location, your structures of design. Setting communication setting to your towers of communication. Ooh-ah. Right there. Unison. So this is Asgard. Right here. Boom. Amazing how we come into that through all set positions, guys. Right? Now change the angles. Look at what we got in travel. Face recognitions. Same right here. Change that communication system, alter structure, 1, 2, 3, and position of 4 settings. Fence of recognition. Change it again, sets communication high centers and 45 flux over screen. Setting communication high core centers, line direct signals, ground lines of service, and set position. Ground lines of communication setting, all communication system, all through travels, astral projections, and astral connection system through your pyramids and track location. Oh yeah. Okay? But look at the face recognition. See the face? Here's the eyes, right here. Sideline. Say hello. All right, guys? So I think I gave you guys enough to work with and truly understand how to go through the powers, how to go through line position locations, setting lines into 3 perimeters. Okay? So everything inside, okay, is the inner spectrum. Anything you do outside is the outer spectrum. Outer spectrum. Outer spectrum. A travel. Inner, okay, outer, okay. Anything out of box frame is outer space, guys. Look, travel mechanism settings. It's vessel of communications. Boom. Okay, so it gets much easier when you just basically have fun with it. But look at the structures that we come in design lines and screen adaptation of surface interactions. Look at how powerful that is. Look at that. Look at that. Look how powerful that is. Look at that. Look at that through schematics. Boom. All through a particle accelerator. All right, so everybody understands that now. So we understand the outer ring. Okay, it's a 12 clocking system, the outer ring. Okay. The inner is the core, which is its flywheel. Okay, so it's understanding the platforms, how to travel through. Okay, how to ground your system in lines of highways and travel. How to set position to your perimeters and your primer circuits in the four-line communications of highways. Directing lines outer, set positions of outer interactions. Setting communication lines of outer and outer communications and setting. Process lines of 1, process lines of 3 in track communications. Flick the switch, travel position, point lines of communication and face recognition. So it's amazing how we come into that all lines of travel, the stealth. See the stealth? Look, there's the stealth. Right there. Boom! Okay? Very powerful, guys. And here is your pyramid. Okay? So you have to stand here, again, a different angle, another stealth, going in the opposite direction. The more you get in position, the more you understand how to use it in correlation settings of panel. You start to recognize how to go through the force sequence and set position locations. How you come to the platform to this. This is where we come in. Let's start with the 1. Okay, we'll start with that. Okay, so this is 1. Okay, so 12 here, 24 in center. Okay, and 12 here. Let's just start with the 3 platforms, right? So we'll start with 3 circuits and setting. Okay, there's the primer circuit. Just the 1. That's just the 1. 24 center platform. Okay, 12 center platform. Okay, 12 center platform. Ground powers and atmospheres, right? 24 clocking system. Okay, setting lines and platforms over 2, over 3, over 6. Setting communication lines at 1 line signals to 2 track locations over 8. Setting direct lines at 12 line signals over lines of 3 track locations. Okay. So, like I said, the more you have fun, the more you understand what you're doing through travel from intersect lines and, of course, centers of inner spectrum and outer spectrum. Setting lines of primer circuits and lines of face recognition. Set position here and set position here in travel. Platforms of communication setting a space and modulation system. Teleportation vessel. There's the platforms right here and set position. Energize. See, this is a platform. This is a teleportation vessel. Look how powerful that is in track locations. Let's change the direction. Whoa, another platform teleportation of travel. Whoa. Okay. So it's incredible when you guys come into your primer circuits and everything that you see. And this is all done through 1. Number 1. From a 24, 448, a 72, and a 144 grid. So the 24, the 48, the 72, and the 144 comes in its crystal grid that creates its particle accelerator. Okay? That's what it is in traction. When you come to that, this is what you come in position of. Hoo-ah! All right? So there we go. Boom. Just love this one. This is amazing when you actually see the particle accelerator. Traveling through this. There's your webbing system, your highways, your network system locations. There's your grounds. So it's incredible when you guys understand the box frames of inner spectrum to outer spectrum. Okay? Triangulation in, 1 cycle, 2 panels out in travel. But that's over sequence. Overcross, direct, set position over line settings, and indirect. Okay, cross lines through pi. Sets communication setting to a location grid in track location. Setting direct signals and ground lines of 1 and process lines of 4 line position. Setting communication lines of 3 tractions and theta in lines to outlines the screen adaptation. Ooh-ah. Triangulation over 3 and position lines of travel. Ooh-ah. Setting communication high center X3000 comes in platform. Setting communication high center locations in 1 cycle, 1 center, 1 traction, 1 division. Sets communication lines of grounds, powers, and atmospheres and highways and travel. Ooh-ah. Setting communication lines and configuration of face recognitions. Setting platforms of high set correlates and high travels and communications. Flux over screen, 3 lines of signals, 4 lines of tractions, solar net, line communications, solar grids, setting communication lines of network and screen adaptation. And then communication setting and line rotation surface in your pyramid. Isn't that amazing? Isn't this fantastic? Get a true understanding of how this all works in all position location of the system. Bring it back home, back in clarity, back in setting. Boom. Look how powerful that is. Location grid, platforms in X3000. So now you have to truly understand how to use it in set position of volume through mass and vacuum and velocity and acceleration if you're going to be mocking or anything in travel. Okay, let's go through 4. Okay, and once you have the 24 platform, you have to add 12. If you only want to add 12, that's fine, but you need 12 lines in the grounds. Okay, you can't just do 12 in space. You have to have 12 in the ground. So you have to be grounded here, and you have to be grounded here in center. It has to come together. It has to come together. And then you set up the primary circuits in 3 track locations, all through 4. Then you have the 24 platform and communication. Then you set the 12 lines of grounds and the 12 lines of space. Sets communication high centers of platforms over 3 lines position of center. Sets communication lines of ground lines of surface in 3 track locations. Setting communication high position location in 3 lines of communication setting in center. Boom. Structure division. X8000 comes in, all right, sees it lines of communication of docking here and docking here and setting. There's hangar setting, there's hangar system and travel. Boom. Okay, you're here in center. This is where you can do anything you want and travel. Look at this. I'm traveling in 3 lines of circuits and 4 line communications. Ooh-ah. 3 different things going on, guys. All at once. All at once. Okay, all through the number 4. All through number 4. 3 things going at once, all through the number 4. 1, 4. To 24, 48, 72, and 144 platform. Story frame. Beginning, middle, and end. There's no beginning, there's no middle, there's no end. Once you understand your coding, then you understand there's beginning, then you understand there's an end. Right? But until you understand that, there's no beginning, there's no end. And you have to recognize that all through the number 4. 4. This is this. This is this. This is that. This is through number 4. Look what I did through a story. Hooah! Okay? All right. So when you get into that, you come into this. We understand the platforms of communication, which is very powerful stuff. Now you understand the inner spectrum. What's the outer spectrum? Inner lines, inner position locations. Inner, outer, audio. Platform 1, platform 2, platform 6. Process line and direct signals, the ground lines of surface and traction. All right, and then we have 3 lines of signals in the same direct signal. Then we go over cross location setting to your pyramid and track location. There's your pyramid. Setting sequence lines over 1, cross lines of 2, and process lines of 3 in line position. Setting communication height, position location line centers, ground lines of 1, ground lines of setting and operation magnetic, and a 4-line communication setting of part accelerators in 4 channels operation system in 24,000 seconds, in 24,000 minutes, in 24,000 hours in set position. Hooah! Okay, standing correlations of grounds, part acceleration system, 24, 48, 72, and 140 set position. Done. Flick the switch. There it is, part acceleration. Setting lines of grounds, platform here. All right, sets position here, over here, and 3 platforms. Okay? Energize, set lines. There's the energize, but you have to have the grounds of tubing. Says position location of system all through travel. Hooah! All right, so you walk the platform in that position location. Congratulations, you're 3,000 years in the future. 3,000 years. And that's how you get there. All through platform. Does that mind blow your system? Understanding particles and direct signals of ground lines is setting. Under symbolism, lines of track communication system all through magnetic force line communication. Okay, all through track locations. Coming back home, back in sequence, back in panel. Hooah. All right, so we're going to stop there and travel. I know you guys need to rest and take your water, but I'm showing exactly how this is all done. How you have to really understand how to ground your system. How I travel through 3 lines of communication of 3-story frames just through the number 4. Okay? You have to understand your traffic, your inventories, and know exactly how to use it through all of your thoughts, your action, emotions, going in the same directions, knowing exactly how you use a 24 clocking system, 48, 72, and 144 together as one. One. Okay? All timelines all at once. Okay? Through a part accelerator. In platforms. In set position. Inner spectrum, outer spectrum. Inner norm, outer norm. Inner space, outer space. Inner orbit, out of orbit. And the higher you go, then you come into the in, and then you come into the out, and then you come into the audio. Audio is very powerful because now you come into high core centers and frequencies through sonar and echo and chamber and Zulu and Foxtrot. Okay, so it gets a lot more easier if you understand you through the story of who you are, of frequencies. Okay, so you're telling a story of you, okay, in real time, of creating what you want to create through the number 4. Okay? Setting lines through the number 4. Look what I created through creating, of creation, through number 4. 4 is this. Hooah! I know that mind blows your system. So the more you concentrate on that, the more you concentrate what's going on with your systems. All through your binaries, all through your algorithms. But you've got to code your own systems. Because now we're in sequence of 24 lines of communication setting, 24,000 seconds, 24,000 minutes, and 24,000 hours. Okay? So your 24 clocking system is now in silicon, right? Out of carbon base. See you in 5.